everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all having a really lovely time wherever you're watching this. As the holidays get closer, I know that it can get hard to get everything done and especially get everything baked for parties or whatever else we have coming up. And so I just kind of wanted to share one of the ways that I get some things done around my house. So I have a little girl. I get a lot of stuff done when she's sleeping, and so a lot of that happens at night after she goes to bed. And I usually start by milling some grains and putting together my basic sourdough loaf. I have a video on that. I'll link it down below. I typically make 4 of these at a time just because we go through a lot of bread in my house. So the first thing I focus on is getting that dough together and getting it to the autolyse period where it sits for 15 minutes to an hour. And while it's doing that, I can move on to something else that I need to do at night. So the next thing I did on this night was put together some cinnamon rolls. And so here I'm just bringing the dough together. I also have this in a video, the full process of this, where I explain everything that I do. So I'll link that down below too. But that's what I'm doing while that dough is resting, is getting my cinnamon roll dough together. And I'm using the mixer because that just makes my life a lot easier with pretty much anything besides my basic sourdough loaf. I use a mixer. And I have mentioned this before on my channel. I'm really trying to get better at cleaning up while I go along. So that bread dough that I started earlier is still in its autolyse period. And so I'm just cleaning up everything and getting back to my bread here for its first stretch and fold. I always do a good bit more than the 4 traditional stretch and folds on the first round, because when I work with fresh milled flour, I find that it does better this way when I do a lot more at the first time. So that's what I'm doing here. And then I'm going to let this rest for 30 minutes in between stretch and folds like a traditional recipe. And after it sits for 30 minutes, it's where I might do something else. I think this night, that's when I went and took a shower and got myself ready for bed, and then just came back and did a few more stretch and folds before I let it rest for 30 more minutes. Then during that rest time, I needed to feed some starters so I can make some things tomorrow. And so that's what I'm doing here. I also want to mention, I'm not super strict on my rest times in between stretch and folds. If it's 15 minutes sometimes, if it's 30 minutes or 45, as long as it's somewhere in and around that time frame, I find I do just fine with it. And then I had some leftover flour on purpose. I always mill a little bit more than what I need when I'm baking at night. And I like to put it in a plastic baggie and keep it in the freezer, not the fridge, the freezer, because this is what I primarily use to feed my starter. I find it's really helpful to me to just have the flour on hand, and I feed my starter a lot better. So once I fed that, my dough was still resting, and I just took the time to get some dishes done. I had done the dishes from dinner earlier, so I didn't have too much to do right now, but definitely trying to clean up the kitchen and stay on top of things. I am not good at this every night. And then I am moving on to my final stretch and fold, and then I am done for the night and headed off to bed. And then I was going to make this like an evening baking routine, but I didn't think it was fair to not show the finished products of these in the video, so this is the next morning. I'm just adding my rising agents to the cinnamon roll dough and using my mixer to do that for me. And then once that's all set, I'm going to get to rolling that out. But before I roll that out, I'm going to shape my bread. I know this is kind of weird, but my little island here moves, and I was filming a couple of other things today that I wanted a different angle for, and so that's why it's different than what you normally see. But I'm just lining my parchment paper and shaping my bread, and I'm going to let these rise on the counter today instead of in the fridge. I'll definitely add that I only do a counter rise if I'm going to be home and able to watch it, because I don't want it to overproof in the loaves. If I'm not going to be home, or if this happens to work out timing wise where it's going to be overnight, then I wrap it up in plastic and put it in the fridge, which can be a useful hack if you are trying to work out the timing and you need to make this a little bit earlier. You can definitely stick it in the fridge and slow down that rise time. I'm also realizing that on this day I only made 2 loaves, so I got that wrong earlier when I said I normally do 4. I do normally do 4, but I only did 2 this time. And then I moved on to my cinnamon rolls, just rolling them out and putting the filling on and getting them ready for the oven. Another useful tip for working ahead: a lot of times things that you make before you bake them, you can put them in the freezer. That's what I did with half of these cinnamon rolls, and you can keep them in there for several months until you're ready to bake them. So if you have a day that's free before the holidays, there may be things that you can mix up together and freeze before you bake them. That way, all you have to do when you're ready to bake is put them in the oven. Now, I have gotten in trouble before for not showing the crumb of my bread, so that's what you have here. Obviously, fresh milled is a little bit more dense than traditional flour, but I do not mind that at all, because that's actually how I like my traditional sourdough anyway. And then I am just frosting my cinnamon rolls. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I thank you so much for watching. If you liked it, go ahead and hit that subscribe and like for me, and comment what you're baking for the holidays. We'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.